Okay, for all of you guys that like foiling videos, do I have a treat for you? We're going to be doing this full foil of baby lights and painting the dropouts to create this gorgeous buttery blonde. You can follow me on Instagram at Christy@thecottage.
Okay, so my client that I'm doing right now, she's pretty blonde and her hair naturally is like a level 9. I don't know. Her hair is very light naturally, but she feels like she's not blonde enough, and I think it might be because her natural hair is so light that it just kind of blends in with her hair. So she's always feeling like she wants to go brighter and blonder, which before I think she was pretty ashy and she felt like it wasn't bright enough. So then we kind of brightened it up and made it more like white, but not super gold or anything, just not super ashy and cool. But the picture that she showed me today is actually very like icy and cool, but not too dark and ashy looking. So she said that she wants to get rid of the dimension that's in her hair, which she doesn't really have much dimension in her hair at all, but I'm thinking she probably sees like where we weaved through her roots. So we're gonna go through and do a full foil today. And I think she wants to do like a bigger chunk right here. We normally just do probably like 2 or 3 fine like foils right there in the front, but she wants it to be like really obvious and stand out a lot more. So I'm probably gonna do a few like slices, maybe break it up with a little bit of a weave, like slice, weave, like right here. That way it's nice and bold. And then we're gonna repaint through her ends to try to brighten her ends up too. So right now we're gonna mix for that. I'm going to use my Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 20 volume, and guess what I did? I broke down and I bought the big one. It's so expensive. I hate spending it. It's so expensive. But I use it literally with every service. So I figured I might as well just buy it. So we're gonna add our Olaplex to our lightener, and yeah, so that's what we're gonna do now.
Here's my client's before. You can see her hair is so light naturally, but it really just blends with the blonde that we've done previously. And a lot of people say I don't section my clients off, but I do section them off. I just section as I go for the most part. So we're just going to start with this bottom section down at the nape of the neck, and we're going to start by doing her hairline foils. Now look, since you guys want to say that I don't section my clients off, now I'm going to insert it in my video, and look how bored you are now. Nobody wants to see me sectioning my clients off. You guys, it's like 6 in the morning and this is like literally the first time I'm talking this morning. Okay, so my voice hasn't warmed up. I've said this so many times before. I sound like a man. Okay, I already know this. So if I sound extra manny and horseish or whatever, I know this. Just give my voice some time to warm up and I won't sound so haggard in a few minutes. So I've shown this way of foiling the nape of the neck before, and I saw this from Jamie Dana, and if you guys haven't tried foiling the nape of the neck this way, it works so much better. It's kind of awkward at first to get used to it, flipping the foil backwards, but it's so much better and easier. Just make sure that you pop the foil up with the clip and to prevent it from like slipping or moving around, and it makes it so much nicer. for the back nape of the neck area, I usually do 4 to 5 foils on the hairline. That way, when I'm done with the hairline and I'm going up the back section of the head, I can just go up with one foil straight up the back center instead of having to do like 2 separate sections going up the back. So right now we're just going to finish doing the nape of the neck on the opposite side. So now that we have the nape of the neck done, you can see that I'm able to just go all the way straight up the back. And I want to say, if you're going to go through and do like a root shadow and soften the hairline up, then you probably don't have to take the time to do that much detail work as far as doing the foiling around the back hairline, just because you're going to cover up anyways, where I feel like if you just do it straight across versus vertical to help blend and make it look a little bit softer, then it doesn't really matter because you're going to minimize the lines anyway. Where I feel like if you do it like horizontally straight up the back, I feel like you can see the lines in the hair a little bit more. So that's why I like to go through the back and do my foils this way along the hairline, because that way when they pull their hair up, it just blends really softly, as it will in the front of the face when we do the hairline around the temples. So I feel like clients are a little bit happier when I do their hairline this way in the back, because it just blends so much better and it looks a lot softer, and there's none of those like streaks that you get in the hair if you just like do the 2 sections of the back center of the head. I feel like you get a lot of lines in the hair that way, and foiling this way for me prevents that from happening. Also, because she said that she wanted less dimension in the hair and to be more of a solid blonde, I'm going to go through and weave out any of these little pieces in her hair from when we did her hair months ago, where we did a full foil and we went through and literally like bleached out her whole head almost. And she was so bright and nice and blonde, but she just had little subtle pieces of dimension. So we're just gonna go through as I foil her whole head, and I'm gonna weave out some of those little strands, and we're going to lighten those up. Now that I've gone through and done the back section of her head down by the nape of the neck, now I'm going to go through and finish sectioning off this top part, and I'm going to go half and half. So I'm just going to do a few foils on one side, and then I'm going to move over to the other side of the head, and I'm going to do a few foils on that side. So I don't like going up completely, like doing the whole right side of the head and then going through and doing the whole left side of the head, because I want to make sure that this processes evenly, and I don't want to have to like go all the way through the one side of the head and then this bleach is kind of weak from when I first mixed, and then say I have to remix my bleach and then I have to go through and start on the left side. That bleach is going to be a lot stronger than the bleach that I'm using now, and so that is going to get a lot brighter than this side, and so I just want to make sure that everything processes evenly. So we're going to finish this side of the head, and I'm kind of going up with some weaves and then doing some slices here and there, just kind of switching it in and out, not like any particular pattern or weave slice or anything like that. I'm just kind of throwing some slices in there every now and then. So we're just going to do a few foils here and then move our way to the other side of the head and then keep going back and forth. And you can see that I'm able to just do like 2 sections of foils. I don't like to use like just the center section of my foil and then I'm making more work by myself, because now I have to do like, you see some people that do foils and it's like they like take away from the ears forward and it's really just this behind the ears back section. They'll do like 3 sections up the back center of the head, and I feel like that's just making so much more work for yourself, because they're not using the whole width of the foil. They're like folding it in probably like an inch on either side of the foil, and I just feel like you're making so much more work when you do that. You could really just not have to fold the foils in. No, the foils do not slip. I've had people ask me that before. I use the Framar foils, and those really have like a nice grip to them because they're embossed. I have tried using other foils before when I ran out, and they slip really bad. They're either too thin or too flimsy. They even tear. Like, I'm not used to the firmness of the foil that I have when I use the Framar ones. So I feel like I can be a little bit, I don't want to say rough, but like I can move the foils around a little bit more and hold them a little bit differently, or not. I don't know. I don't have to be so delicate when I foil when I use the Framar ones, because they don't break or peel, or like, do you ever hold the corners up and then it tears? Like, that rarely happens. But when I use the other foils that were a little bit more thin, they were like tearing and ripping. It was like so annoying. So no, they don't slip if I don't like turn the corners in or anything like that. So just use the whole width of the foil, and you'll feel like you can get a lot more work done, because you're not having to go back through now and do that center section. You can just do the two wider sections on either side of the head. Now that we're getting to the top section of the head where this little triangle section at the top is small enough that it will fit one foil, I'm just going to go through and finish this section just going straight across the back. Okay, now that we're at the front of the face, I'm gonna go through and do the hairline, and I did not remix my bleach yet for this part just because I know that this part of the face is a little bit more delicate and very fine, and I know it's gonna lift pretty good. So normally I start at the front of the face and then I go through and end up pulling the foils out probably like halfway through the service, but because this bleach has been sitting probably for like an hour and a half at this point while I've been foiling the whole back of the head, I know that this foil is very weak, but it's strong enough to lighten her hair because her hair is so light naturally, and also because the hair is so fine. So before I go remix my lightener, I'm just gonna finish off this bleach by doing her hairline foil. If this is your first time watching my videos, then I'll explain really quickly how I like to do my foils around the face. So I prefer to do my foils around the face vertically versus horizontally. That's because I like it to look more natural, as if the sun were to naturally sun-kiss the hair. So this creates like a really soft blend and it gives minimal grow out, versus if you do horizontal foils, then you kind of get these like racing stripes or the lines in the hair. When they pull their hair back in a ponytail, they'll see like streaks and lines and everything. Versus foiling this way, it just looks really soft and it will blend really nicely and have softer grow out. So as their hair grows, they're not really going to see any line at all. It will just kind of gradually blend in with their darker hair as it grows. So I probably only do like 3 to 4 foils max when I do their hairline foils, and then I'll move to the top of the hairline and do their money piece. Normally when I do my foil right on the hairline up here, I do maybe like 2 or 3 weaves back to back and call it good with like no subsection, just because people like it nice and bright. They want it kind of blended, but because she said she wants it to be a little bit more bold and brighter up at the front, where she wanted it a little bit chunkier, she said. And she asked if that would look okay, and I told her that yes, right now it's kind of the look to have it a little bit more chunkier right at the top of the hairline, a little bit bigger of a money piece. So I'm going to do some weaves back to back, add in some slices, fit in some weaves kind of every other, and probably do like 4, maybe 5 foils up here. So it's definitely going to be quite a bit bigger of a money piece, but it's not going to stand out too drastically, just because we are still going to go through and foil all of her head. So the picture that she showed me, it was like a really bold bright piece, but she had some really dark roots and then like solid blonde through the ends, but she didn't necessarily want to have the darker roots. She still wanted to be nice and bright. So her money piece isn't going to stand out as much as what the picture was, just because we don't have that depth behind the money piece of her natural hair. So if you are doing a client that wants it to really like stand out and like have a really big pop of brightness at the front, then I would recommend going through and doing like a shadow root through the highlights. But my client didn't want that, so we are not doing that. But if you do have somebody that really wants like a nice bold pop of color, but they want like, you know, they really want it to stand out drastically, then you can just go through and like tap the roots, probably with like a level 6 or something, if they're okay with it being a little bit darker. But just make sure your clients know that it's not going to be as dark or as high of an impact if they're not leaving that natural darkness behind the money piece to make it stand out a lot more. Now that I'm done with her hairline foils, I section the top out, like the center mohawk section at the top of the head, and then I'm going to go through and just finish up my foiling diagonally on the sides, and I'm going to kind of start angling up so that they're horizontal, so that way when I get to the top of this section, they will blend perfectly as I reach the top of the head, so that I can start going straight across the top of the mohawk section. Also, I want to say that when I started doing the side of the head on the opposite side, that's when I remixed my bleach after I finished my hairline foils. That way this process is really fast and will basically finish up at the same time as the back section. So right here we're going to go through diagonally, and you'll see that I'm going to start angling my foils so that way they start going more, instead of diagonal, they will start laying more horizontally up the side of the head. And then when I get to the end of this section right here, you can see that they're more horizontal now, and this allows me to keep foiling up across the mohawk section, and everything will just meet up equally. Once I get to the other side of the head too, everything will just be nice and straight as I foil. reason I like foiling this way across the top of the head versus like straight down the mohawk section is because my clients usually like their hair really blended, and they want to be nice and bright but not necessarily really streaky, and this helps the foils just blend really nicely and be really bright, but they won't have any lines in the hair at all because all the hair is just going to kind of fall on top of each other. They're not going to part the hair down the center and see all these lines because that's how I foiled, was just straight down the center. Since I'm foiling the opposite direction of how they part, they're just going to have really soft, bright weaves everywhere. And so you can see that we just foiled all the way straight across the top of the head. We're going to check the foils and see where they're at in the back, and they're still processing, so we don't need to pull anything out. And because she did say that she feels like she's kind of dull through the ends of her hair, we're going to go through and just try to paint through some of the ends and brighten them up a little bit more. So that's what we're going to do right now, is just go through and paint her dropouts. And I know a lot of people do this, but it's also something that I think is not very common, because a lot of people come in when I do this and they're like, what are you doing to my hair? They've never had somebody do this before. So if you have clients that feel like they're not very bright through the ends, then I recommend just kind of going through and just painting through a little bit more just to help brighten it up. This will also help not have to run bleach through the ends and have it sit in the foil and process for the full length. Like, you know, she would probably be going on like 2 hours right now, or 3 hours or something as I'm foiling. And that's just really damaging for the hair if it's already been lightened in the past, and you don't want to damage the hair. So just going through and painting through the ends to help brighten it up is a safer way to do that versus running bleach through the ends and having it sit that way in the foil and then having to worry about pulling the foils out. So we're just going to finish up doing that. And I do add this on for the service. So don't feel like I don't know how to charge for that or whatever. Like, charge how you need to charge. If your client needs to brighten their ends back up, just add it onto the service as like a partial balayage or whatever. So just make sure you're charging your worth, and make sure that you're charging for additional solution and all of that stuff, because everything takes more time. You know, if your client wants a certain look, if they need to feel brighter again, just make sure that you're being honest with them and tell them that, okay, once we get your foils in, we're going to go through and just kind of balayage through the ends of your hair, paint your dropouts, and this is going to be like a $50 additional charge or $75 or whatever you want to charge. That way they know that to get the look that they want, we have to do these extra steps. I feel like a lot of clients don't understand that even though we're going through and just doing like a full foil, it's not really just a full foil. A full foil from like 10 years ago would have bigger subsections and not as heavy and not paint the dropouts and all that stuff. So it's just a lot more work than what it used to be. So this is all that we did for her hair. Now we're going to let her process for probably 10 more minutes.
Okay, so my client is still processing. We just got done painting the bleach through her ends, and I'm only gonna let that sit for probably like 10 minutes or so, just to kind of brighten them up again. So she wants to be really icy and not necessarily like super ashy, but definitely like on the cool side. I think I'm gonna use my Paul Mitchell, the Demi. I think when I use like the 10 PA, that does such a good job of like having like the perfect like pearly icy shade of blonde, and I kind of have a hard time like finding something that matches that the same. Like, I know I really like the Agora Vibrance, and they do a really good job with like their cool tones, but I don't think I've managed to formulate anything yet that's like has such a nice pearly tone to it. So like soft and buttery, you know, like it can be really cool, but it just still looks like a bright cool blonde, but not like soft and like, you know what I mean? So what I'm gonna do is 10 PA, 10A, maybe like 9V. Do I have like AA? If you guys haven't used that like double ash, the 10AA, that stuff is magic. It literally looks fluorescent. Not that I want to use that on its own, but I just want that like extra impact of like double ash, which it looks so good. Thank the sweet Lord above. Got it. So I'm going to use some of that too. Actually, I'm going to exchange that out of the 10A. Just going to use that with the 10A, 10PA, 9V, and of course, a little bit of my rose gold. Using the rose gold is nice because it really helps prevent any of the extra porous areas from overtoning or grabbing too gray. If you tone your blondes and they end up looking really gray, chances are that they're just too porous and it's like sucking up that color. So you might need to add just like a hint of warmth, like not a lot at all, just like a few little drops of warmth, and that will kind of balance everything out. Or you could even do like, before I tone it, I do like Olaplex treatments, and that will just kind of help get moisture back into that hair and strengthen that hair just a little bit, so that way it doesn't over grab the toner. So but yeah, keeping, a lot of blondes want to be nice and bright and cool, but they don't want to necessarily look too ashy, and adding a little bit of warmth into your blondes is going to really help them have a nice tone and like still feel bright, but like not dull. So that's what we're going to mix. And of course, I'm using my processing solution.
So here's what I'm mixing, and I used mostly the 10AA, 10PA, just a little bit of the 9V, and just a little drop of the rose gold. And here's the full service that we did. You can see how nicely those ends are brightening up. So everything's gonna blend really softly, and now we're just gonna pull our foils out, and then I'm going to kind of scrub the bleach through the ends of the rest of her hair just to kind of help blend the roots through the ends. So this is how I know that her toner is ready. When the hair starts looking a little bit darker, but any form of warmth is eliminated from the hair, then I know that she's ready to rinse. Because if it doesn't scare me, then I know she's not ready. I let her hair look like it's a little too ashy, because when I wash her hair out, it's just going to be nice and bright. But you just have to be very careful. Like, you need to know the toners that you're working with to be able to do that, because if you don't know your toners and you think it looks a little ashy, it very well could be very ashy. But I know what I'm doing. I know how these toners work and how they grab. So just make sure that you're comfortable with the toners that you're using in your formulation, because you don't want to like think that it's just going to be nice and cool and then actually be very gray. So I know some of you guys like watching the blow dry part of the service, so I'm just going to leave in some of these little clips of blow drying, and then also going through and styling the hair, just because a lot of you guys do ask, how do I style my client's hair? And this is how I do it. I just take these sections and I curl everything towards the back center of the head, and then I don't really curl the ends of the hair a whole bunch. I just kind of let those sit for a few seconds, but you know, I want them to be a little bit straighter. So it's mostly like the midsection that I'm curling. I just want to make sure that the roots are nice and smooth, and that the ends kind of drop out a little bit more. So just curl everything towards the back center, and that will create like a nice loose body wave, because after this we're going to go through and comb it out. I just want to say, look at how nice and bright her hair looks. So when I actually did this service, we finished kind of into the afternoon and the sun had started. It wasn't like gone completely, but it definitely wasn't brightening up the waiting area where I like to take my pictures. So I just want to point out, look how nice and white and bright these highlights are. They're definitely a lot lighter than what it shows in the end video and in the pictures that I posted on Instagram. So it's just such a bummer. I hate this time of year where it's darker and you don't really get a true color for what the hair looks like. So just look at how nice and bright this is. So we will let her hair cool, spray it down, and then we're gonna comb it out. And that's just gonna give the hair like a nice soft beachy wave and, you know, help all the curls kind of blend together. And that's how I like to style my hair, just because I like it a little bit more relaxed looking. And all of my clients are literally obsessed with how their hair looks after I curl it.
So blonde. Ah, love it.
So does this look, can you see like
Yes, I can see the
right
line there. Yeah.
Okay.
This is great.
Okay.
Very blonde.
Do you feel brighter?
I do.
Okay.
Very much so.
Yay!
Here's her before again. She is very bright, but it's just crazy how her hair just looks kind of dull because of it blends so much with her natural color. So here's her after. You can see that it blends really pretty into her roots. No streaks in the hair, no heavy lines or anything. It just blends really softly and pretty. And look at that buttery tone. I love that pearl ash color. I think it's so pretty. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.